Hello, I'm Kiki in Cowtown, and Happy New Year! Today is New Year's Eve, December 31st, and I just finished my reading goal for the year, and I thought I would rush to film this video because I don't have the energy to do it at any other time. So yeah, in this video I'm going to be talking about the books that I read this year, and specifically all my 5-star reads I wanted to just touch upon. I do have 15 5-star books, so like I do not want this video to be 3 hours long, so I'm gonna try and be short and direct and not get too sad. So let's talk about my reading stats for this year. This year I stopped using Goodreads and I started using the Story Graph, which is similar to Goodreads, a lot cleaner though in appearance and in ethics. So yeah, because Goodreads is owned by Amazon. I read 40 books this year, which was my goal, which is crazy because like last year my goal was 30 books, but I had only read 26. So I'm like, I'm not used to meeting my goals, which is so weird. And 2020 was such a horrible year, but I honestly think it was so good for books and music and things like that. Really, a lot of these books are recently new releases in the past few years, which is kind of crazy. And like I love a lot of these books, and I'm so excited about what's to come in 2021 and everything else I can read. I'm just really excited to read. So I read 5 audiobooks this year, and I checked out 11 library books, and those were all books that I checked out on the app Libby through my library. I definitely would not have been able to read this many books if it wasn't for Libby. I do not have enough money to be buying books every month to read, and like there's less pressure. You check out a book for 14 days, there's more pressure to finish it, but there's less pressure to enjoy it. Like if I purchase a book and I read it and I don't like it, I feel bad about it because it's like I wasted $15 on this. But in the library, if I hate it, I can just return it without finishing the book, and it relieves this sort of burden. I read 6 ebooks, which was the first time I've ever read an ebook was this year. I'm so thankful for it. It is so convenient just to be reading books on my phone because it's like I'm there already. I can just close out TikTok, go read a chapter of my book, and then I can go back. It speeds up the whole process, makes everything easier, and also I can read books at 3 a.m., which is mainly what I did do this year. 26 of the books I read were actually books that either I had bought or had been gifted to me, but they were physical copies of books. Let's go look through my the Storygraph stats, and that's one thing I really love about the Storygraph is just how they show the stats in really pretty fashion. We got cute little graphs. So my top 3 moods for books were this year were emotional, reflective, and sad, which is embarrassing but accurate. I read mostly medium-paced books, some slow-paced books, mostly books in a 300 to 499 page range, and I read 39 fiction books and 1 nonfiction book, and that 1 nonfiction book I finished 30 minutes ago. So definitely in 2021, one of my goals is to read more nonfiction, namely all of the freaking memoirs that are on my TBR shelf. There are so many memoirs that have just been sitting there for a while, and I should really just knock out in 2021. And my top 3 genres were contemporary, LGBTQIA, and young adult, which makes a lot of sense. And I don't know, I'm happy with my genres. I don't really think I want to change much, except I read 15 LGBT books, and 12 out of 15 of them were about like men or MLM relationships and stuff. And 3 of them were sapphic stories. 3. In 2020, I read 3 sapphic stories. That's embarrassing. I am a failure. We're going to change that in 2021. I'm on the hold list, okay? At my library, I have the Henna Wars on hold. I should be getting it in like 6 weeks. So I'm on the track there to read more sapphic books. My average rating was a 3.99 stars. 2 books I didn't feel like I could put a rating on them, and that was Real Life by Aiden Thomas and Fun Home by Allison, I forget her last name. Both of those books that I didn't give ratings to made me like really, really sad, so it feels like unfair to put a rating on them. And Fun Home is like a memoir, so like how can I give a rating to a memoir and be like, no, your story wasn't moving enough? Like, no, okay. Before I talk myself in the corner, let's talk about these books. So first, I should knock out the 3 books in my 15 5-star reads that were rereads from previous years, books that were already my favorites that I just reread. First one is Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. I think I've talked about this before. I absolutely love this book. I reread it and I loved it even more than I did the first time. This book is what 2020 should have been, but was not. We were robbed. We were robbed of this experience. This book is about first son of the United States falls in love with enemies to lovers with Prince of England. Yay, amazing, fun times, great. The next one, Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chubowski. I love this book. I will always love this book. It's a super short read. It's amazing. I always recommend it. The Perks of Being a Wallflower is just about this kid in his freshman year of high school going through some stuff. In summary, that's kind of what all my favorite books are like. Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe is the 3rd one. I make it my mission to reread this book every year in the summer because it's my favorite book of all time. It's about Aristotle in his summer and he meets his new best friend Dante and they go on adventures. It's just a coming of age story that's so beautiful. And I quote it every day. So now into my first time reads for this year. So I guess we'll start with The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. It's the story of Achilles told from Patroclus. Is that how you pronounce his name?
Patroclus.
Told from Patroclus's point of view. I'm bad at explaining this book, but just read it. It is a really good time. Sad, but like in a dramatic Shakespearean kind of way. Next off was Everything I Never Told You by Celeste Ng. I'm so happy I found this book and I found this author because she's amazing. She's amazing. Her writing is so good and I absolutely love it. It chronicles this family after the oldest daughter after she is found dead. And the family's coping with her death, trying to figure out what happened, what led to this and everything. And so it goes back into the past and the future, just telling the lives of these family members. And it's just really nice. And Celeste Ng's storytelling is amazing. Peak. The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo. I listened to this book for the first time on audiobook. It is written in verse, in like slam poetry style, which is amazing. That's what made listening to the audiobook so perfection, because the author read it, was the one narrating, and amazing. The Poet X is really just about this Afro-Latina girl growing up.
A young girl in Harlem discovers slam poetry as a way to understand her mother's religion and her own relationship with the world.
Look at this cover! Look at this cover! Next, I can talk about Anger is a Gift by Mark Oshiro, which I listened to on audiobook and I talked about in another video on my channel. But yeah, really, really sad, but also really beautiful.
Anger is a Gift is a work of contemporary fiction for young adults exploring the realities of police brutality and racist oppression people of color experience in America.
I felt such a connection to the characters, the main character. I felt such a strong connection to him, and you know, when bad things would happen to him, it felt like they were happening to like one of my close friends, just because the characters were so strong in that book. On a more positive note, I can talk about Check Please. I read Check Please book 1, #hockey, and Check Please book 2, Sticks and Scones, I think it's what it's called, by Nagasu Yukazu. And these books are so cute. Like, they gave me so much happiness. So Check Please is like a webcomic. I think it was originally a webcomic, and I read it all in one night. I started reading at like 12, finished reading at like 5 a.m. Yes, I had such a good time though. I could not stop reading. So this boy goes into university and joins like the hockey team, even though he's not really experienced in hockey. He was previously a figure skater. And what makes this series so much fun is the main character. I forget his name. It's kind of told in vlog style. He's like chronicling his life in this new hockey team through his like baking YouTube channel. It's such a cute series, and I really enjoyed it. The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Cloon. I think this is one of 2 fantasies that made it onto 5 stars, and this book is so amazing. This book isn't very sad. It's just very, very sweet and heartwarming, and it's really a good time. Really just about family and love, and it's so nice.
Linus Baker leads a quiet, solitary life. At 40, he lives in a tiny house with a devious cat and his old records. As a caseworker at the department in charge of magical youth, he spends his days overseeing the well-being of children in government-sanctioned orphanages. When Linus is unexpectedly summoned by extremely upper management, he's given a curious and highly classified assignment: travel to Marcia's Island Orphanage, where 6 dangerous children reside: a gnome, a sprite, a wyvern, an unidentifiable green blob, a were-Pomeranian, and the Antichrist. Linus must set aside his fears and determine whether or not they're likely to bring about the end of days.
The Kiss Quotient by Helen Huang. Again, a book that I read in one sitting from, I think, 7 a.m. to 12, and it's so good. And is about this woman with autism who she's like, I think she's in her late 20s, and her family is pressuring her to get married and everything, and she's like, I don't know how to have a relationship. She kind of hires this escort guy to teach her how to be in a relationship and everything. I started reading the kind of, it's not necessarily a sequel, but it's like The Bride Test. I read the first 6 or 7 chapters and I absolutely hated it. It was bad. The sequel is bad. I don't recommend it, but the Kiss Quotient itself is so good. And it makes me so happy. And next, I get to talk about one of, I think it's probably my second favorite book of this year, and it's definitely on my favorite books of all time list, is Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. I first purchased this book on the Kindle app on my phone because I had heard a really good review of it, and I was like, I need to get my hands on that book. I need to get my hands on my book. And my library didn't have it yet because it came out this year. So I was like, oh, my library doesn't have it yet. How am I going to get it? It was like, it was 11 p.m. at night. And I was like, I just really want to start reading this book, please. So I paid $10 on the Kindle app to get this freaking book. And then I got a hardcover for Christmas because it's so amazing and I needed to have it in tangible form, because just admire the cover. Admire the cover. Let me show you. Beauty. It's beauty. Like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
When his traditional Latinx family has problems accepting his gender, Yadriel becomes determined to prove himself a real brujo. With the help of his cousin and best friend Marcia, he performs the ritual himself and then sets out to find the ghost of his murdered cousin and set it free. However, the ghost he summons is actually Julian Diaz, the school's resident bad boy, and Julian is not about to go quietly into death. He's determined to find out what happened and tie up some loose ends before he leaves. Left with no choice, Yadriel agrees to help Julian so that they can both get what they want. But the longer Yadriel spends with Julian, the less he wants him to leave.
It just makes me so happy. It's so cute and so sweet and so fun, and I really want like a mini series, not by Netflix, because I feel like Netflix would screw it up, like massively. I feel like they would screw it up, but I want a mini series because it would be so cute. It would be so cute. Oh my god. And I know it's just going to become a tradition. I want to read this every Dia de los Muertos. I probably will. And Aiden Thomas, I think this is their debut novel, which is insane because this book is so good. So yeah, this is a wonderful debut, and I'm really excited to read whatever else Aiden Thomas comes out with, because I think they have a new book coming out next year. So yes, I'm so excited. Another book that really touched my heart this year was Like a Love Story
by Abdi Nazamian.
I read the ebook.
Set in New York City in 1989, at the peak of the AIDS crisis, Like a Love Story follows a trio of teens as they navigate heartthrobs and heartaches alongside the hysteria and activism that rose in the wake of the epidemic.
I love how real the story feels, and it talks about things that I feel like other young adult books really don't touch upon. I want to talk about an honorable mention, which is The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett. I rated this book 4.5 stars, which I don't know why. I thought I'd just talk about The Vanishing Half anyway because it's a really good book. And it's been talked about everywhere, on YouTube to anywhere books are talked about. The Vanishing Half is going to come up because it's definitely one of the best books that came out in 2020. But it's about these two sisters who they're both black, but they're very light-skinned. Like, they live in a very light-skinned community, and they are especially light-skinned in the light-skinned community. And one day, I think when they're 14 or so, both of them, they're twins, and they run away. After they leave their hometown, eventually they split ways. One of the sisters carries on her life as a black woman and marries a very dark-skinned man, has a dark-skinned daughter. The other sister goes on to live her life passing as white, and she marries a white man who doesn't know that she's black, has a daughter who doesn't know that she's black. And it kind of, at first I thought that the book would follow the sisters, but it actually follows their children more. And I think it's just a really beautiful story. And I think the reason why I might have rated it 4.5 stars was because the beginning was kind of hard to follow along. It was like we were kind of time jumping, and I was having a hard time keeping up with what was happening when, who was saying what. But eventually I got to the middle and the ending. And the ending wasn't necessarily sad, but it made me so sad, as books like this often do, just make me so sad. But yeah, this one is a really important story, I think, and I definitely recommend everyone read it because it's just It's so good, and I really think this book is going to go down as probably one of the best books of the decade. Even though we have just started the decade, I think this is definitely going to stand up against the test of time. The second to last book I'm talking about is Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reid. I finished this book 2 days ago? Or was it yesterday? Nope, I finished this book yesterday. And this Black woman, she is a babysitter for this white family. Her relationship with the child that she babysits and her mother and their kind of rich white people world that's very different from her own. And then she gets into this relationship with this white man who's also very different than herself. And so I think it's just such a smart book. It's almost like the cynicism of Toni Morrison mixed into a pot of fun, dramatic rom-com. This book is proof that you can write a book about race without direct exposure to Black death. Its messages are underlying in the most realistic way, like if Little Fires Everywhere was about a young Black woman. This book is very similar to Little Fires Everywhere in the kind of family drama that it talks about. It talks about class and race in such a real and dramatic way that is just so beautiful and something you can't turn away from. Like, it forces you to keep reading to see what happens next. Here is where I talk about my favorite book of the year, and that is Darius the Great Deserves Better by Adib Khorram. This is a book that I haven't heard anyone talk about this book, and I follow like a lot of booktubers on YouTube and everything, so more people should talk about this book. But Darius the Great Deserves Better is the sequel to Darius the Great Is Not Okay. I think I read this in 2018, and I really enjoyed it. So this book is just about him in Iran, and
Darius Kellner speaks better Klingon than Farsi, and he knows more about Hobbit social cues than Persian ones. He's about to take his first ever trip to Iran, and it's pretty overwhelming, especially when he's also dealing with clinical depression, a disapproving dad, and a chronically anemic social life. In Iran, he gets to know his ailing but still formidable grandfather, his loving grandmother, and the rest of his mom's family for the first time, and he meets Sarab, the boy next door who changes everything.
Yeah, he meets Sarab, this Iranian boy, and they become best friends. And I definitely want to reread it soon because I feel like I missed a lot of things the first time I read it. I missed a lot of cues, and I think I like the second book better, which is insane because I am not a sequels person. I do not like sequels. It is not my thing, but Darius the Great Deserves Better is amazing. In this book, Darius is back in the United States, and he's back in high school and at his predominantly white high school where people are mean. He joins the soccer team, and so in the soccer team he finds all these new friends, and it's kind of weird for him because he's like, okay, I think I'm fitting in. Like, this feels weird, like I'm actually fitting in and making friends, and there's actually people who like care about me who are my age, which is like so weird, and like it feels so personal to me. And the guy that he's becoming friends with on his soccer team, like, they're studying together and they're having a good time, and Darius is really confused about it because in the first book he talks about how Chip and another kid had like bullied him for years. They had said like racist comments, different homophobic comments, like his entire life. Like, these two boys have been the enemy, and then all of a sudden Chip is like being his friend, and he's like, I don't know what to do about this. And I just absolutely love the way that this book addresses like everything, you know? It feels so personal to me and my experiences as a freaking teenager growing up in a predominantly white school, it's like, why do I feel like I'm literally in this kid's body? Like, this book and Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe just hold a special place in my heart. Darius is such a wonderful character, and I think that's really what makes this book amazing. Is while reading this book, I was just like, I don't even care what Darius decides to do, who he decides to pick. I will support him in whatever decision he makes, because he's just that beautiful of a character. This book deserves the world. It is my favorite book of 2020. It is one of my favorite books of all time, and I will be revisiting this book very shortly. So yeah, thank you for listening to me ramble for an extended period of time about books of all things. But yeah, best wishes for 2021. I hope you meet all your reading goals. I hope you meet all your resolutions and goals, and I hope you stay happy and healthy. And yeah, I'll see you later. Like and subscribe. Bye.